This is from Larken Rose's book, The Most Dangerous Superstition. Buy it and read it. And read it over and over and over again, especially if you want to try to shatter people's worldviews. But you really only need to read it once because you already know all this shit. It's just hard for you to articulate or even find deep down inside your brain because of the environment that you've lived in for so long that kind of wiped these simple truths from your mind. So here we go. The laws of mathematics are an objective, unchanging part of reality. If you add 2 apples to 2 apples, you have 4 apples. Those who study mathematics seek to understand more about reality, to learn about what already is. One who entered the field of math with the stated goal of altering the laws of mathematics would be seen as insane, and rightfully so. Imagine how absurd it would be for some math professor to proclaim, "I hereby decree that henceforth 2 plus 2 shall equal 5. Yet such lunacy is what occurs every time politicians enact legislation. They are not merely observing the world and trying to best determine what is right and what is wrong, something every individual should and must do for himself. No. They are claiming to be altering morality by issuing some new decree. In other words, like the insane math professor who thinks he can, by mere declaration, make 2 plus 2 equal 5. The politicians speak and act as if they are the source of morality, as if they have the power to make up via legislation what is right and what is wrong, as if an act can become bad simply because they declared it to be illegal. You can see this throughout the history of the world. Some fucking insane shit that everybody knows was immoral used to be legal. Chattel slavery in America, for example. Even back then, people knew it was wrong, but they would return fucking escaped slaves because it was illegal to harbor them, just like with the Jews in Nazi Germany. Even people that knew it was wrong even owned slaves just because that's the way it was back then, and it was legal, and this was the way for their business to be most profitable, is to own fucking human beings. How insane is that? But now everybody knows. And now everybody from that time was deemed pieces of shit, and rightfully so. But it's still going on. The slavery is still going on, just in more covert ways. Like, but you think just because you ain't fucking chained to a post and getting whipped and shit and being made to do whatever the fuck one motherfucker makes you to do, it's like free range slave. You're like a free range slave. Like, yeah, you go out because you got to own a slave. You got to take care of them. You got to feed them. You got to house them. Blah 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 blah. So now they make you go out and do all that shit, and they take half of your stuff. And they make up a billion laws to where if you do anything that they don't like or approve of or deem immoral, also illegal, they'll throw you in a cage. If you don't want to go in the cage, they're going to kill you. That is slavery. They tell you what you can and cannot put in your body. That is slavery. It's just a bunch of euphemisms for slavery. It's ridiculous. This book is outstanding. When I read, I highlight shit, and I'm just grabbing a couple things that I highlighted. So, here we go again. To believe in authority negates and overrides nearly all the positive effects of religious and moral beliefs. What most people call their religion is simply empty window dressing. And what most people tout as their moral virtue is irrelevant as long as they believe in the myth of authority. Christians, for example, are taught things such as if someone strikes you, turn the other cheek. Love your neighbor, and even love your enemy, and do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Yet, every so-called Christian who believes in government constantly forsakes these principles, advocating constant aggression against everyone, friend and enemy, neighbor and stranger, via the cult of government to put on a show of being pious, religious, and compassionate, loving, and virtuous while voting for a gang that promises to use violence to control the actions of everyone you know. In the height of hypocrisy, To refrain from professionally robbing one's neighbor while pushing for someone else to do it is both cowardly and hypocritical. Yet, almost every Christian and every member of every other religion does such a thing on a regular basis by way of political advocacy. Think about it. Who is really your God? You know, you claim to be a Christian and you want to, live by this moral code outlined by your Creator, but you throw that shit to the wind every time fucking Big Daddy government comes around and says some shit, and not even throw it to the wind like they come to you and try to make you do some shit and you just do it because you don't want to get hurt, but you cheer and rah for Joe Biden or Donald Trump to oversee this whole hierarchical pyramid of fuckery that aggressively and violently dominates and controls every single person you know. Just saying. There we go. In short, those who believe in authority have accepted on the most fundamental level that they are owned by someone else. The people claiming to have authority have accepted that idea and then proceed to beg their masters for favors. In doing so, however, the people are continually reinforcing the idea that ultimately it is up to the masters what will be done with the subjects. And the one constant message that echoes throughout the entire political process is this: here are the things that we, the people, ask you, the ruler, to allow us to do. The implicit message underlying all political action is that the only power the people have is the power to whine and beg, and that ultimately it is always up to the masters what will happen. To push for any change in the law is to accept that the law is legitimate. It is not legitimate. The only law that's legitimate is natural law. And man's law is a constant violation of natural law all across the board, because you got to break natural law to enforce man's law. And if man's law is in harmony with natural law, it's redundant. And if it's not in harmony with natural law, it's morally wrong. So it goes directly against that. And by advocating that, supporting that, and obeying that, you're creating an immoral environment. And the law of freedom goes, the more moral a society is, the more free a society is. And now take a round and look at the world and look how unfree we all are. I mean, we're just a few steps away from being in fucking chains again. And it's because we're vastly immoral. So I suggest that you start looking at what is objective morality, what is the objective reality. And if it's subjective, if you think things are subjective, like there's some things that don't change. Like gravity's not subjective, and neither is the real law. So get your fucking head screwed on tight.